I want to thank the Athenaeum for the space and for all the support that they give to the Writers Committee who have planned this event. Carolyn McGuire, who's behind the desk there, behind the bright light. Keeps us all informed. And Jean Marie, the director, who is not.
He's not here tonight.
Ah, great. Well, probably if you've been around the Athenaeum, you know her. And this is, as we said on the brochure, Love, Roses, and Thorns. And for some reason, I keep saying Love, Acorns, and Thorns. Or we are, of course, celebrating Valentine's Day late. But I have a friend who refers to Valentine's Day as the day before half-price chocolate day. Seems to be true. We have 4 stories tonight, very different, all of them. And they are stories that are remembered by the storytellers, that are true to the storyteller, told without notes mostly, and on the theme, as I said, of roses and thorns. And our first storyteller will be Elisa Fowler, who goes pronouns she and her. And after graduating from Boston University with degrees in biology and fine arts, one of Lisa's first grown-up jobs was painting watercolors of the resident birds for the New England Zoological Society. This led to her being featured in a PBS short documentary about bird artists, which aired on John James Audubon's anniversary. Then came a stint as a production manager for the startup line of newspapers, followed by design director gigs at magazines, nonprofit organizations, and textbook publishers. And she eventually jumped ship to the editorial side of the printed page, retiring as vice president publisher for professional books. I can't do this sentence. I can't believe you put this many P's in. Okay, vice president publisher for professional books at a progressive educational house. Yes. She now writes, draws, and creates sculpture out of other people's trash. Please.
Thank you. I thought the alliterative made it easier, but really I was wrong. Is this working? Can you hear? Early in my publishing career, I was a design director at a textbook company just outside of Boston. I wasn't crazy about textbook publishing. I chafed against the institutional orthodoxy and the uninspired, reductive nature of the books themselves. But I was still getting my feet wet and learning a lot. My little company happened to be owned by Raytheon, one of the world's largest defense contractors. Given the profound philosophical mismatch between a children's educational publisher and a weapons manufacturer, we made for strange bedfellows. But we book people wanted to believe that in some small way, our work helped to mitigate what rolled off of Raytheon's assembly lines. Our offices sat just inside our parent company's corporate campus, a 100-acre spread surrounded by tank-proof barbed wire barricades buried deep in the perimeter hedges. We used to laugh. Who would want to attack us? Rival publishers have to steal our secret bookmaking sauce? But security was taken seriously at Raytheon. And barricades aside, there were real benefits to having a deep-pocketed owner. Publishing is a hand-to-mouth operation, but as a division of Raytheon, we had few money worries. In good times, resources rolled right down the hill and directly into our coffers. Thanks to the recession of the early 90s, however, these were not good times. Defense sales had tanked, so to speak, and Raytheon's CEO, Dennis Picard, imperious, autocratic, and holding our purse strings, was looking to slash expenses. I was 7 months pregnant when Picard told my group that we were now responsible for the design and production of Raytheon's annual report. Annual reports for the uninitiated are showy, big-ticket jobs, a chance for companies to show off to their stockholders. The previous year, in fact, Raytheon had paid an outside agency $1.6 million to produce its annual. This year, however, Picard, who saw no difference between surface-to-air missile brochures and textbooks, assigned the job to us. My boss tapped me for the project. I wasn't surprised. I was chosen because, one, I had a reputation for getting the job done with minimal bloodshed, and two, because I was all too obviously in the family way. My boss was banking on Picard being his most restrained self in the presence of a pregnant worker. My other responsibilities vanished, and I waddled up the hill to meet the corporate communications team. Like most of Raytheon, this group was all male, mostly ex-military. Their director, glancing unhappily at my belly, briefed me in rapid-fire acronyms. We're promoting mimic chips and MLS for the FAA this year. Be sure to include TWRS. Don't forget VTS and AVERT. And obviously AMRAAMs and GBRs. What? I hadn't understood a word. I asked if he could repeat it in layman's terms. He sighed and started again. I'm talking about the ANSPS 40 and the MK Mod 60s. Is that clear now? I felt nauseous, and it wasn't from the pregnancy. One of his sidekicks translated. That's interceptor warheads, air-to-air missiles, tactical launch systems, and radar jamming technology, he said, rather kindly. I certainly understood what came next, however. The annual's deadline was only 3 months away. I was loaned a corporate office. Writers, editors, and photographers were placed at my disposal. I was handed an itinerary. Raytheon had worldwide installations, and the schedule had me art directing photo shoots in Venezuela, Oman, Ireland, and India. What was healthcare like over Mumbai? I wondered. What if my water broke over Thailand? I told my new coworkers I needed assurances that I'd be taken care of while traveling. They agreed instantly. I now understood something else. They were all afraid of Picard. My inaugural trip was to Wichita, Kansas to shoot military jets. We arrived to find a good cross-section of the fleet already scattered on the tarmac. My photographer and I were hoisted in a cherry picker up to a hangar roof, the better to shoot objects the size of, well, aircraft. Speaking to the ground crew via walkie-talkie, I asked that some of the planes be shifted just a little to the left, other planes just a few feet to the right. I asked that the asphalt be hosed down to give the planes shiny, glistening reflections. I wondered if we could hit the jets with gels for a sleek, high-tech effect. My ex-Air Force handler was clearly unaccustomed to the minutiae of art direction. He was even more uncomfortable with female civilians telling him what to do. When I asked that one of the jets be shifted just a few more feet, he retaliated. Ma'am, he said, you know how they test the strength of airplane windshields? They take two planes up in the air and fly them directly towards each other. Using a chicken cannon, one of the planes fires a frozen chicken, you know, like the kind you get at the supermarket, directly at the other plane. If it doesn't shatter, it's safe. Really? How naive did he think I was? I laughed at what seemed to be his little joke and turned away. I had work to do. Back at the office, I asked my new coworker buddies how they test airplane windshields. You take a frozen chicken, they said. Over the next 2 months, I traveled to Hong Kong, Caracas, Dublin, Denver, Chicago, and Houston. Between photo shoots, I presented design layouts to Picard. He routinely approved everything, but maybe he was just being polite because I was pregnant. One day, we drove to a local manufacturing plant to photograph Raytheon's Patriot missiles. Inside the factory, a guard handed us bright yellow security badges. Do not take these off, he ordered. You have yellow level security. You are confined to the yellow zones. Do not leave your group. You will be accompanied at all times. He paused. Disregarding these regulations is a criminal offense and you risk being shot. He gestured towards a guard with a gun. My handler seemed blasé, but I flinched. So did my baby. Out on the factory floor, the half-complete missile bodies were swarmed by assembly line workers. While my photographer set up, I snapped a few preliminary shots with my Polaroid instant camera and tucked the shots in my pocket for later reference. Now, prepping for a photo shoot is time-consuming, and I had to pee. I was 8 months pregnant. I had to pee frequently. I slipped out of the room and headed towards the bathroom I had spotted earlier. I'd almost made it when I heard shouts. Guards with guns were running towards me, yelling, "Halt!" I froze. I hadn't forgotten the rules, but had assumed that for somebody in my advanced condition, they were kind of a joke. They were not. I was ordered to wait right there until a woman could be found to escort me. My sex being in short supply at this facility, this took a while. I was interrogated while we waited. My Polaroid was confiscated. I had to surrender the snapshots in my pocket. Images of top secret missile technology were not allowed in bathrooms. Who knew what I might do with them within a toilet stall? Back in the office, pages slowly came together. Copy was approved, rejected, rewritten, reapproved. Final photos were selected and replaced with new final photos. Accountants checked and rechecked the financials. I settled on a paper stock and finalized the press date. I also grew larger. It became hard to move quickly, then hard to move at all. 1 week out from final file release, 2 weeks out from my own due date, my editor and I were tweaking pages late one snowy evening. It was almost midnight when I dropped the last photo onto the cover. Exhausted, we pulled on our coats and trudged out to the parking garage. At that hour, our cars were the only ones in sight. I was in the lead as we wound through Raytheon's lanes, my huge belly pressed against the steering wheel. Rounding a curve, I saw a king-size plow, the kind with wheels taller than a car, about 100 feet ahead. It was backing up directly towards us. Through the swirling snow, I could see the earphone-wearing, head-bobbing operator high up in his brightly lit cab. I halted and leaned on my horn, but he didn't look around. He didn't slow down. My editor, right behind me, blared his own horn, but it wasn't until the giant machine climbed up on the front hood of my car and his cab tilted forward that the operator cut the engine and looked down. The front of my car was crushed. Paralyzed with terror, I was unable to move until my editor jumped out of his own car, yanked open my door, and pulled me out. The plow driver tumbled down from his cab, his eyes wide with guilt. They grew wider when he saw my huge belly. I was unhurt, but unable to stop shaking. I could feel the baby's heart pounding right below my own. Raytheon's security guards materialized and took statements. The plow driver swore he had looked behind him and that he never wore earphones on the job, forgetting the evidence still dangling around his neck. He backed down only when my eyewitness editor, furious at the blatant lies, started yelling. I took the next day off. The corporate office, terrified of a potential lawsuit, delivered an avalanche of flowers. The communications director called and begged me to take as much maternity leave as I wanted, 5, 6 months at full pay, whatever you want, he urged. The annual released to the printer the following week and met its deadline. 6 days later, meeting another deadline, our son was born. The day after his birth, the entire corporate communications team crowded into my hospital room, bearing more flowers and a wrapped gift. I was holding the baby, so the director unwrapped it for me. It was a signed copy of the annual's cover. Smiling sweetly, I unbuttoned my pajama top and lifted my son to my breast. The men couldn't leave the room quickly enough. I took Raytheon up on their offer of extended leave, using the time to get to know our son and think about what I wanted to do next. No more textbook design, that was for sure. Just before my 6-month leave was up, I learned that Raytheon had submitted my annual to an international design competition. It had won 2 silver medals and a gold, including first place for best cover. That same week, with weapon sales once again starting to rise, Picard sold my publishing company to the highest bidder. I updated my resume and sent it out.
Well, our next storyteller doesn't have a sentence with a lot of T's in it, but she does have a first name that I'm going to probably murder. HaoHaoAllen Cheng who goes by Allen, is an international student from Nanjing, China. She's now a junior with an English literature major and education minor. She's in the 121 program, which is held by her college, Nanjing Normal University in China, in collaboration with Salem State University. She loves music and digital drawing. Alan?
Well, hi everyone. I'm Alan, and today I'm going to share my story with rock music. I know I don't look like a rock person from the way I talk and the way I dress, but I've been a rock fan for almost 6 years. And well, I always consider my hobby as relatively old-fashioned, because I was born in 2002. And I love the rock music back in the 1990s. I especially love some bands, British bands like Oasis and Sweet, which you might not heard of, but also some American bands like Nirvana. Well, but the reason why I started to listen to rock music is super, super, super dramatic. It was back when I was in high school 6 years ago. Back then in high school, we had a quote break between morning classes. We call it a big break. And during that period of time, we were required to go down in lines, one line of boys and one line of girls, to go down to the small crowded athletic fields, because we have over 30 classes back then, and just do simply running and aerobic exercises. And I have to confess, because I wasn't a good student, I always escape from doing these things. It doesn't mean that I hate doing exercises. I love them. But I just hated being forced to do the things, even though I love the things. Well, I played a trick with my class teacher. I used to imitating my mom's handwriting on a piece of paper and wrote that my daughter is feeling sick, so that I can legally stay in the classroom and do the things that I wanted to do. And on a day, I was staying in the classroom with all the girls that are feeling uncomfortable, feeling sick. And we were just randomly chatting, and the topic suddenly came to, what kind of music do you love? Well, a girl named Jenny, who was sitting beside me, asked, do any of you listen to rock songs? And I was not a rock fan then. And I just said at the top of my head that I know a song, Wonderwall, is by Oasis, right? But I had no idea who Oasis is. Because it was because one of my online friends, he loves Oasis and Wonderwall, and he made me listen to that song 100 times. But upon hearing that, Jenny got immediately turned on. I thought she just mistaken me for a rock fan, but I'm not. And she just wouldn't shut up about asking me various questions about different rock bands. Do you know this? Do you know Oasis? Do you know Blur? Do you know this song, that song? I can't remember, but I felt like, ooh, it's terrible. And from that on, Jenny started to share music with me every single day. Well, I have to say, because I was kind of being forced to listen to rock music, but I found myself gradually started to love rock music because of its soul. Because I was the person in high school, we're not free. We're just like caged birds in a small classroom and do everything, test and studying, learning things. So the soul of rock music to me is freedom. And it moved me because I was a person who lives without freedom at that time. So, and part of, and one of the other reasons that I love rock music is because back then I only had a small iPod with MP3 player because I was forbidden to use any digital devices. And that is the only entertainment that I can get from. And for sure, our high school didn't allow us to bring any digital device to school. And you know, I don't care. So we also have a period of time which is about 1 hour long. We call it noon break, that we were forced to sleep. And I hate it. So I always pull our huge school uniform over my head and hide my MP3 player inside and listen to music. And Jenny was sitting beside me, and I usually share one earphone with her through the sleeve of that uniform, and she. Well, 1 year passed, and we all graduated, and we all went to different colleges, but I was too young to realize that things change so fast. During summer vacation, I gradually got the ambition of learning the guitar and find a band in college. But I didn't expect that I made progress so slow, because when you play the guitar, you always use your left hand to press the string so hard. So it always got blisters on it. And that prevents me from practicing more. Sometimes it's because I was lazy, but well, after I became a sophomore in college, and Jenny called me to see if I want to see a movie with her and have dinner. And I said, wow, great. And on that day I met her, I was got astonished because I saw her. She was like a completely rock person with a black leather shiny coat, and got part of her hair dyed green, light green. And when she waved at me, I saw on her head 4 rings. I felt short in front of her. Well, we still have a lot of things to say, but I'm jealous because she showed me a lot of photographs that she was playing in a band. She was playing bass. And on the stages was the colorful lights shining above her. Well, after that day, I got crazy. I picked up my guitar and started practicing so hard, regardless of the blisters. And I also went through my college to search for if anyone wants to play in a band and they need a member. And at last, I found a boy. He was a freshman, 1 year younger than me, and we met. He asked me, what can you do? And I said, I think I can sing pretty well. I think I want to be the lead. And he was like, no way, I will be lead singer. And I was like, okay, I can also play the guitar, but I'm still learning how to play, so I need more time to practice. And he was like, okay. And I said, I can also play the piano, but if I want to play in a band, I should practice the keyboard. It's different, but it won't take a long time. And he was like, okay, perfect. But I'm still going to be a lead singer. And that is the last sentence of our conversation. Well, after that, I think that actually takes my passion for rock music away. I think I'm just kind of escaping from the reality because I love music, but everything prevents me from getting closer to it. It's just like the roses grow with thorns. And when you want to touch the roses because it's so beautiful and the thorns hurt you. This is the sad story, but if it's a really sad story, it should end here. But things changed when I got to Salem State. I met a professor. She was teaching my photography theory course. And she asked us to bring a copy of the photos we took. And I picked a photo of a girl playing guitar on a stage. It's not Jenny, but it's in a concert when I went in the United States. And on that day, I happened to wear a t-shirt with Nirvana on it. And she saw it and she asked me, well, did you go to a concert of that guitar player? And I was like, yes, of course. And she looked at my t-shirt and said, it's a pity that you can't go to Nirvana's concert anymore. And I was like, it's a pity, yeah. And our conversation just ended here. But it gave me the feeling that, well, I can sense that my professor is a rock fan, but you don't have to be a rock person, or you don't have to actually play rock music to be a rock fan. You can just simply love it and share with those people who are the same as you. Well, a few months after that, when I was buying the concert ticket for Ed Sheeran, who is not a rock star, but I suddenly saw a notification about the London Suite is going to have a concert in Boston in Thanksgiving. And without hesitation, I bought that ticket and went there alone. Well, upon finding my seat there, I just came to realize that on my left hand, it was an old man, very old, with white hair and thick glasses, and his wife. And on my right hand was a mother whose age I can't really tell, but I saw her son sitting beside her in confusion. And I looked down, because I was sitting on the balcony, I looked down to the general admission and noticed that there was a group of strong men with beer in their hand. And I feel like I was the small chick shivering in a group of flamingo. Well, but at the end, the moment finally came to the lead singer invited us to sing along with him. We all stood, no matter how old we are, no matter who we are. We just stood and sang along with that melody. And at the time, I felt like the door I used to lock for rock music has been unlocked. And I decided to add something because it just happened 3 days ago on Valentine's Day. It was my boyfriend. He was in China. He is in China. And he called me to see if I wanted to do something together online on the special day. And I was like, okay. And he asked, what about listening to music together? And I was like, what kind of music do you pick? And he said, I want to listen to the music you love. And I said, no, you you won't love the music that I love. And he said, well, it doesn't matter. I will use all the cells around my body to appreciate the song. And well, so that is the end of the story. I realized that roses do grow with thorns, but if you wear the clothes, you won't be hurt. You won't touch the rose.
I have a couple of love quotes from musicians to follow that. Love is something sent from heaven to worry the hell out of you. Thanks to Dolly Parton. And I don't know how many of you saw the movie Love Story, which was a really sappy movie 20 or 30 years ago. I don't know how many years. It has a line in it that love means never having to say you're sorry. Well, this is John Lennon's interpretation of that line. John Lennon, the Beatle. Love means having to say you're sorry every 15 minutes. Love that. So our third storyteller is Joey Phoenix. Her pronouns are they, them. Joey is a queer trans-face storyteller, photographer, performer, and interdisciplinary artist. While they live and sometimes sleep in Somerville, their playground is Salem. It is there that they have spent the last decade building community, creating art, and engaging in various flavors of magical mischief. They are the founder and co-lead of fairy performance troupe Moonrise Fae, and the squire of both the dance team Whistlepig Norris and the LGBT social network. They are currently working on their first book of essays about grief, bugs, and finding home, called My Cicada Year. Joey?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I've been told frequently that I talk too quickly and I mumble. So I'm gonna try very hard to make eye contact with all of you, not mumble, and speak slowly. This is the story of how my grandmother, Patty Lou Piper Furry, taught me how to avoid brambles and pick blackberries. I was raised a wildling in central Illinois on occupied Pawnee Illini land. My parents, both realtors, loved their offices deeply. They spent much time with books and computers and business. And every summer, they would get tired of me and my sister and send us to the wild lands, the farms of Springfield, Illinois, and beyond. And my grandparents would take us in, feed us biscuits and gravy, keep us music, lend us books, keep us far away from all things business. The farm itself was a masterpiece to wander around. When storms would roll in over the orchard, you could see it for miles because the land was so flat. I would sit under the apple tree, gleefully hidden from my grandmother, and get soaked by the rain as it came in. She was the kind of woman who would say she was a proper lady, but secretly was either a fairy or a witch or both. And she would take me by the hand and we would walk the perimeter of the farm. And she would name things in the lands that I didn't have names for yet. She would say, that's a darterfly. Look at its wings beating rapidly. That's an iris. See how its petals reach up towards the heavens. A black-eyed Susan has a mischievous middle. She would let me fondle apples before they were ready to be picked. She would let me try to poke at fish in the lake. It was called Lake Patty Lou after her. And she would let me wander the lanes and find thickets and things to poke at. And of course, she would make me check for ticks later. But one day, she took my hand down an alley that we had not yet been to. I was 5. And in the bright sunlight, there was a thicket of blackberry bushes. And I, enraptured, looked at the tiny fruit, and I was like, what is that? But before she could tell me or instruct me not to touch, I reached in and faced the consequences of meeting a blackberry bramble in all of its fury. Because as you all probably do know, blackberries have evolved to make deer very angry, and also 5-year-old children. And so she tried her best not to laugh at me, but if a child yelps loudly after getting attacked by blackberries, she thought it was funny. She was that kind of lady. But she graciously took my healthy hand, led me back to the farmhouse, bandaged me, and then we walked right back. She was like, you were hurt by this. I see that. I will honor and validate you. That was not nice. But you're still going to pick blackberries today. So she said, this time watch first and then do. And deftly, my fairy grandmother picked a blackberry so perfectly and deftly off the vine, not being touched by a bramble at all. And I, amazed, was like, can I do that too? And she says, yes. You must, actually. I insist upon it. You must. And so we did. For 40 minutes, we sat there picking blackberries, feasting on their sweet juices. I'm sure most of you have had the opportunity to eat a blackberry off the vine. There is nothing like a sunburst in your mouth. It changed me. And also I said, should we pick some for Grandpa or for my sister? And she said, no. These are for us. We are here now in this moment. I will bring them here later, but for now, this is for us. And she taught me that in this moment, sometimes selfishly, things can be just for you. She was born on the 4th of July in 1932. A sassafras wild lady. She would climb up trees and smoke cheroots that she found there and defy her family because she did not like her parents. She eloped with my grandfather when she was 16. Her parents did not know where she went for 2 years. But she believed in a strength of spirit and independence that I have grown to see the merit of. So those summers, those moments away from my parents, saved me when I was young. Unfortunately, my family took my sister and I to Florida when I was 9. And so my connection to her was temporarily severed. But all the while, what she does, she was scheming. And so 2 years later, she bought a trailer in Bradenton, Florida, because she thought, why don't I become a snowbird? Wouldn't that be nice to live in Florida, in the concrete jungle, where you open your dryer and there's a snake? Or you look out into your pool and there's an alligator. Florida seems nice. I think she did it for us. So my business parents said, okay, sure. You can occasionally watch our children. My parents had grown suspicious at this time. Like, are you teaching my children witchcraft? No, I'm Methodist. And so in Florida, I gave up my forests and my orchards and my blackberry brambles for salt and sand and fish. And that wild woman, we walked the coastlines and she would say, that's a jellyfish. Do not step on that. That's a crab. We used to not step on that. And she took me to orange groves and I tasted a fruit from an orange tree for the first time. And a kumquat. That's a thing, a kumquat. It's a tiny orange. And I learned the difference between tangerine and clementine and kumquat and orange and navel orange and Angelo, also delicious. And we would go to these places, and my grandpa, bless him, would wander behind us quietly, whistling the sweetest songs and helping us pick the fruit that we could not reach with our tiny arms. She was a very small, lovely lady. Unfortunately, also, as things go, and this is the part that gets somewhat fuzzy for me, my father kidnapped my sister and I and took us away from Florida. And so all of my grandparents' schemings were, once again, not sufficient to save me. But when I was away, I held firm to the wild places, and in my heart and in my head, I would go to the orchard, and I would go to the bramble bushes, and I would put myself inside the bush, and I would be there, knowing that only a few people would know the secret of how to find me. I escaped that horrible situation, only to find out that my grandpa had 4 different kinds of cancer. And so she and him went back to Illinois, where the bulk of my family was, for him to seek care. Thank you for your patience. And for a while, I lost her, because reasonably, her partner was not well. And no matter how strong and brave and magical you are, you can't always give all of you to everybody who needs it. And so his dying wish was actually to see me and my sister before he went, so I got to say goodbye. And then afterwards, she came back to me and she said, I need you to promise me some things. And I was like, Grandma, sure, of course, anything you want. And she's like, you will not get married until you get your master's degree. And I was like, oh, okay, Gran, sure. And she's like, you will read every book someone tells you is important to them. And I was like, okay, Gran, what? She's like, if someone said this is important to me, it's probably important for the world and for you. She said, make time for music, to play it, to hear it, to share it. The world's best stories are told with music. And she said to never be the kind of person who just trusts and obeys. Live defiantly, live honestly, live mischievously. I was like, okay, Gran. And then she said, please call me every week. And so I did. And I visited her whenever I could. And as I grew older, I started to notice some things that I had not noticed when I was a child. Some various bigoted communications that she gave to my sister who married a Black man. Some conversations around gay people who lived in her neighborhood. Are you waving at me? I can wrap it up. Huh? Okay.
Early word.
I have no concept of time, so. And so I would hear her say things that I'd be like, oh, she's just. Yeah, but she gave me so much wisdom, so much truth. She passed away in 2018. And I was not out yet. I was very much married to a man. I was living in Salem, figuring out who I was and what I wanted as a human being. And I was not sure about any of it. But she left. She was in open heart surgery. So it was one of those things where we were unsure anyway, but I didn't get to say goodbye properly. But she left, and that morning, I felt just a little kiss on the side of my head. And it was like a breathe brave, darling. So that year, I was. I left my husband. I came out very publicly in an article in the Rainbow Times, being like, hi, I'm gay. And I have not stopped since. Thank you.
We've had quite a range, right? And we're about to have even more of one. Our last storyteller is Elisa Towle Snow, pronouns she, her. Elisa is an artist in Salem since 2006, Montserrat alumna and Salem Main Street's events coordinator. Elisa's current project is a children's book series celebrating neurodivergent characters. Elisa?
I want to do an experiment. This is not going to seem like it applies, but it all comes together. It applies to the theme. Love, roses, and thorns. I want to know, is my voice better like this? Or if I use my voice like this? Microphone. Thank you for telling me, because the tiny differences between things are all that matters to me. I'm obsessed with the tiny differences between things. A lot of people are becoming more aware lately of sensory differences. And so I want to talk about that. I was thinking, I have 10 minutes. What could I possibly talk about for 10 minutes? And then I thought, what's the one thing that I cannot stop talking about? Disability stuff, it's my jam. Neurodiversity, that means the vast array of our exquisite minds. And that happened, right? There's a hum.
Back up just a little bit.
And if I touch it, it stops. This is all really important to me. The ticking is really important to me. I didn't think I would need the structure here. Oh, there it goes again. Have you ever seen someone play the theremin? I feel like I'm doing that now. I wasn't expecting this. So what I'm doing now is called a vocal stim, actually, and I hadn't planned to do that. But a stim is a way to regulate unpleasant feelings in a world if you're a highly sensitive individual. So right now, this hum is so intolerable, and the only way that I can make it feel better is to, yes. So my goal for talking today was to be my whole self and inhabit my body exactly in the most honest way possible. And that was my choice as to show love. So to accept yourself, accept your differences, show the way that your body is all different from each other in the world is true love, falling in love with yourself. Body positivity movement, we're all understanding that. But a lot of times that has to do with people talking about the aesthetics of their body. Loving the way that you look, even if society tells you you're not fitting the rules. But I want to introduce you, maybe if you don't already know about it, loving your unique nerves, your nerves in this world. The point of storytelling, in my opinion, but it's my hands.
Hold on to the podium and it stops. Elise, don't use the mic.
Yeah, don't do it. Goodbye, just
Goodbye, Mike.
giving you freedom. Yeah,
It can be loud.
This feels so much more me actually, because like I want to take up a lot of space. I'm a stomper. And I actually wanted to share like how delicious it can be to be in love with your sensory life. So that's the love, the sensory stuff. You saw the thorn. Oh my God. So when you're highly, I always say like, you know, it touches here, but I've got these invisible nerves that go about this far out. Some people tell me they can't hear electricity. Wow, the lighting in here, what a gift. I was expecting fluorescence. I am not having to think about how to hold my eyebrows to give myself a little shade. This place is a pleasure. The rug here has muffled all of your voices. So whenever you laugh or clap, oh, clapping is so painful. Bam, it's like a bullet. But books are a great insulator for sound. The rug is a great insulator for sound. This dang clock is really hard though, because I'm hitting a rhythm here. I can get on a rhythm, but I'm so aware that it's trying to pace me differently. So when we think about what it's like to be a different person, and we all have a different body, it's sometimes just exciting for me to think about my rose and my thorn, because I think that I have to pay the price in heinous humming, rude ticking, painful lights, because not only do I get goosebumps from music, yep, I got goosebumps right now remembering a song. Like when I get into the water, I feel all of my little bits. Like I saw an anatomy textbook and learned my different muscle groups and was like, oh yeah, I know them. They each communicate to me as soon as I hit the water. They chill out. You rule. So that's my rose petals. After you get to know me for a little while, you'll know that my first sip of tea, please don't talk to me during my first sip of tea. It's eyes closed time. It's one moment of quiet so that I can taste it. I can't taste my tea if the music's on. I can't taste my tea if you're talking to me. I don't know anything if I'm wrapped up in a story. I'm sure a lot of you have been reading a story and you're so deeply in it, and you look up and the sun has gone down, your bladder is extremely full, you haven't eaten, you're lost in the world. And I'm frequently lost in my own bodily sensations, to the exquisite and to the utterly painful. And the way I'm trying to express on the theme of loving anything is that I love myself enough to have stepped away from the mic, though with permission, to make accommodations. For a lot of times, we all assume that we're working with the same deck of cards, kind of. We think there's such a thing as a standard body for a while. And I would think to myself, it's ridiculous that I feel I need to cry at the end of going grocery shopping. I know the detergent aisle is my enemy for aromas. This is how I go down a detergent aisle. And then that's it, you're done. But it's like you're scared of your own world around you. But then I go hang out, get the warmth of the rotisserie area, and I'm back. I mean, seeing these things for what they are and our differences is a way to love yourself and just say, yeah, grocery stores are hard for me. It's totally normal and fine to make it into a game to hold your breath through the detergent aisle. I am privileged to have a small human who is even more sensitive than me. But in terms of the apple tree thing, it took my neurodiversity and just boom, exploded it. So I have a highly sensitive small creature in my midst. And we stim constantly, stimming like I just expressed to you. We're singing along with the electricity. We're comparing textures of all the stuffed animals, book sniffing. I've actually been really curious here. You all sniff books, right? It's a pretty good one. But I just want, as a love letter to yourself, to inhabit your sensory experience and remember that it is just as valid for joy or for pain as stubbing your toe really hard. Having hard lights at you is just as valid to hurt as breaking a bone, and enjoying sniffing a book is just as valid as enjoying a musical performance and feeling that in your whole body. So this is me loving myself and leaning into the uniqueness of my nervous system and going on that roller coaster ride of roses and thorns and joy and deep annoyance at the environment around me. So thanks for having me. Thanks for not wearing perfume. I may need this.
Believe it or not, I have a master's degree in physical education and I never got a gymnasium course. I need microphones. Well, thank you. That's our list of 4 stories. Great range. And I would like to wrap us up with a poem because I'm a poet. And there goes the hum again. Here we go. Hello. This is a poem. There are 4 women telling stories, so this is a poem by one of the few women who ever won a Nobel Prize in literature. This is, and I can't do her first name. I practiced today, but I think I've forgotten it now. It's Wisława is the way it looks, Szymborska, who's a Polish poet, and she won the Nobel Prize in 1996. And this is a poem called Love at First Sight. They're both convinced that a sudden passion joined them. Such certainty is beautiful, but uncertainty is more beautiful still. Since they'd never met before, they're sure there'd been nothing between them. But what's the word from the streets, staircases, hallways? Perhaps they've passed by each other a million times. I want to ask them if they don't remember a moment face to face in some revolving door. Perhaps a sorry muttered in a crowd, a curt wrong number caught in a receiver. But I know the answer. No, they don't remember. They'd be amazed to hear that chance has been toying with them now for years, not quite ready yet to become their destiny. It pushed them close, drove them apart. It barred their path, stifling a laugh and then lapsed, or then leaped inside. There were signs and signals, even if they couldn't hear them yet, perhaps 3 years ago, or Just last Tuesday, a leaf fluttered from one shoulder to the other. Something was dropped and then picked up. Who knows? Maybe that ball fell into childhood's thicket. There were doorknobs and doorbells where one touch had covered another beforehand. Suitcases checked and standing side by side. One night, perhaps, the same dream grown hazy by morning. Every beginning is only a sequel, after all. And the book of events is always open halfway through. So go off into your world, take the other half of the book with you.